Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, joined as always by Don Pizzette. Don, how you doing?
I am doing great. We got some good news this week. Technology, new products, all sorts of cool stuff to talk about. So I'm excited about our show, and there's some big security happenings going on. So it should be a pretty good one.
That's good, because last week was all bad news, if I recall.
Yeah, we try.
And Daniel Lowry up there. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm just over here contemplating the idea of getting into exotic bird husbandry, just randomly.
Yeah. It's the
That's awesome.
Things that Daniel thinks about. And and that other voice you hear is Sarah Tenisi, who is the CEO of TenisiTech, which that worked out well, finding a company with the same name. So congratulations on that, Sarah.
Thank you very much. It was tricky.
So you're joining us from where? You're out in California?
I'm in California, yeah. We actually do business in lots of different states. So we're not just in California. We're also in Washington, Oregon, Colorado.
North Carolina?
And North Carolina. Thank you for that. Yes.
Did my research.
Don't want to forget about those guys.
I
nice
know
job.
more
Nice job.
about
The company.
than Sarah does.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's disappointing. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'd like to get to know you a little bit more in our first segment, which is Rapid Fire Questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, Sarah. In this segment, we are going to throw some rapid-fire questions at you. A timer will appear on your screen. You'll have approximately 1 minute to answer each question. If you take too long, Peter will buzz you.
Wow.
Like that. Pressure's on. And then we'll move on to the next question. So let's see how we do here. We'll kick off our first question coming at you from Peter.
Sure. So this one's a softball. So can you just give us kind of a quick overview of Tenisi and what you guys do there?
Sure. So TenisiTech is an IT services firm. We're in the MSP space. You know, there's tons of us there. But what TenisiTech is focused on is providing and defining IT leadership for companies. So a lot of times MSPs spend a lot of time talking about computer support or how to build a network or security concerns, which are all super important. But executive teams really need strategy. They really need us to define a roadmap and a budget and be able to talk about things from a business perspective. So that's what TenisiTech focuses on.
All right. Now, I know you're CEO of TenisiTech, but you're not somebody who just came out of business school. You actually worked in the field for HP, Adobe. You got your hands dirty as a sysadmin. Do you miss that now that you're kind of in this executive role, or do you still get a chance to do that?
Well, so it hasn't been too long since I was getting my hands dirty in mail migrations, for example. But I don't really miss that side of it. I'm much more focused on the big picture for TenisiTech, but also for our clients. Being able to call out BS, being able to follow a technical discussion is still super important in my role. So I try to keep up as much as I can. But I don't really miss rolling up my sleeves and being a server admin.
Well, yeah. Someone's got to do something, right? Everybody's got to have a role. Now, speaking of roles,
Exactly.
as an MSP, you've probably been dealing with a bit of the little thing we call COVID, and it's been about a year now, rocking and rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what my question will be is, what is the biggest TenisiTech COVID challenge that you faced during this last year?
So it's so interesting because for us, we had clients really in two different buckets, is what I'll say. We had clients that were 40 years old and we're still using all desktops. And so for them, it was a little bit trickier to get them remote. And we had clients that were born in the cloud. So literally it was like, hey, you know how you spend 2 days working at home a week? You're just going to do that full time now. So for TenisiTech, we're actually fully remote. So we don't have an office that employees come into. So for us specifically, we didn't really have any COVID challenges. It was really more the challenge of getting our clients able and comfortable working remotely.
Yeah, it's tricky because every company had to go through it for themselves. You had to go through it for all of your clients. So that's tough.
Well, I mean, it was a pretty serious, probably March through July.
Yeah.
For us, just in terms of getting people. And we also work with healthcare companies. So they had a whole other kind of tricky side where they were essential. So they needed to be around, but they needed to also be more remote. And it was a crazy time for sure.
Thank you both for sticking Run DMC in my head.
It's tricky.
It's tricky.
Yeah, it's difficult to rock around.
That's
So
awesome.
I noticed you guys just celebrated 9 years in business, and congratulations on that. So I'm curious, you know,
you.
not you're welcome. Not all MSPs, you know, make it that far. What are your tips to people that are maybe struggling out there through the tough times?
I mean, it's so interesting because any entrepreneur will tell you that it's such a process to grow a business. And it's funny because everybody has all these different nuggets of information that can kind of help you grow and scale and figure out all the business tricks that have already been figured out by hundreds and probably millions of other people. And so I think one of the pieces of advice I give newer business owners is to sit on an executive roundtable, get an executive coach, really start to identify what it takes to run a business. And so that would be kind of on the business side of things, right? Like, what do you do for sales and marketing? That's not even something that I thought about until very recently. So there's all of the kind of business components. And then there's also a way that you sell your services and that you deal with clients. And I think one of the pitfalls that some MSPs tend to make, and I think there's always a balance, right, is that they will become too accommodating. It's okay if you don't keep your servers up to date. It's okay if your applications are 10 versions behind. That's not good either. And so you kind of need to find that balance of, hey, we need everything to be updated. We need everything to be supported. We're using our ticketing system, not some other one. And I think so, you know, there's a lot to kind of deal with in growing a business. And I think you've got to have a really good group of people around you that can help guide you through it.
So you kind of led me into this one with talking about staying up to date with all of your software and things, but you're dealing with different types of devices for all of your different clients, and you kind of mentioned that earlier too. How do you stay up to date, or how do your tech stay up to date on all those different systems?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. I think, like, from my perspective, and I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, the MSP world can be an awesome place to learn because you are dealing with clients across the board, right? Healthcare, fintech, insurtech, all kinds of different companies, right? And so I think one way you learn is by trial by fire. And, you know, I was a global email infrastructure admin at Adobe Systems, and I learned Sun1 messaging basically in doing research and working with vendors. Obviously, another way you stay up to date is with programs like itpro.tv. We have used you guys for a really long time, and so we make that available to all of our techs when they start. And you also, I think, when you're hiring as a company, you really look for people that are curious about technology, and that's one of our core values. So we look for people that are actually really passionate about this stuff. On the other hand, getting into an MSP can be kind of a grind. So the way that TenisiTech does their billing and interacts with clients is really different than most MSPs. And so we really try to create a non-transactional environment for employees and partners. And I think that that's kind of a big thing too, that enables you to learn, right? Because you're not focused on billing by the 15 minutes. So I think there's a lot that comes into play when you're talking about how do you keep people up to date.
Well, that makes sense, and I promise I was not fishing for an IT Pro TV plug there. But
well, you know, you have to make those resources available for sure.
Yes, you do. You heard it there, and we'll talk about that more later as well. All right. Well, while we have you on here, we want to talk about something that's kind of one of those buzzwords that's going around a little bit. So our next segment is Buzzword Breakdown.
Awesome.
Success.
Virus.
Server.
POP3.
Password.
Cyber bullying.
Say what?
All right, it's not any of those buzzwords specifically, but in this case, we're looking at an article from enterprisersproject.com. It is digital transformation, 5 mistakes to avoid in 2021. And I know digital transformation is kind of one of those big buzzwords that
a little nebulous.
Yeah, it's a little nebulous. So I was going to ask, what does it mean to you in this context here, Sarah, and why is it important for MSPs?
So I've been talking a lot about digital transformation for the past year or so. And it's one of those terms, again, that was very nebulous. And if you remember, I want to say it was probably somewhere between 10 and 12 years ago. That's all everybody was talking about, right? Digital transformation. And nobody understood what it meant. And I still think it's really unclear what it means to people. But what it means to TenisiTech and what it means for our clients is really modernization. It's really about transforming how you do business, how you run your business processes by implementing tools and services that allow you to remove obstacles of the traditional way of doing things. So there's some really simple examples out there. I think two products that we use all the time across clients, something like Zoom, web conferencing. Like, do you actually have to be in person? I think COVID has kind of taught us that a Zoom meeting can feel almost one-on-one. We could have coffee together, even when we can't. That's part of digital transformation. It's not just a shift in technology, but it's also a shift in mindset. Another, I think, really simple example is, using tools like DocuSign. I mentioned previously that we have a bunch of healthcare clients, and those clients hadn't necessarily digitized their admissions process. So COVID hits, and all of a sudden you're not doing in-person admissions anymore. So how do you streamline that for a client? You bring in something like DocuSign. So I think part of what gets lost in defining digital transformation is it sounds big, it sounds crazy, but all we're really talking about is modernizing an infrastructure.
It's funny you mentioned DocuSign. I recently purchased a vehicle, and in the past, I absolutely hate buying a car. I hate talking to the salespeople. I hate going to the dealership. I hate every bit about it. And you end up spending hours there, right?
Don just steals them.
Well, this time I did go into a test drive a few weeks ago, but then everything was done electronically. They sent me the DocuSigns, I signed or whatever, and finally, when it was time to actually get the car, I just went down to the dealership. They gave me the keys. I was there 15 minutes. So a lot of this stuff is being thrown in place because of COVID, but I hope it sticks around because it sure beats the heck out of talking to people.
I love seeing it implemented. I see I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so I see people complaining about the job hiring process, and they love when they're like, "Please submit your resume," and you submit your resume. Now fill out this digital resume. It's like, oh, come on, man, just do the one thing or the other. You don't have to give me both.
Yeah.
Give me the easy button here.
Sarah, would you say
well,
that?
and I had a similar experience recently. I purchased a house. It was the same thing. Like, we did everything in DocuSign. We had a notary public come. She was like at our house for maybe 15 minutes, and that was it. I was like, did we just buy a house? Because that was 15 minutes. That, when
So
all
if you've
was
done
said
it in the
and done.
past, it's a stack of papers, the size of.
So they made me do
Exactly.
both. I had to do digital documents and paper documents, and they said that was the law here for house buying. Yeah, I did that last year.
Well, I wonder too.
In their defense, with a criminal history like yours, sometimes that's
Ixnay on the eminal cray.
They brought all the files to the jail. So Sarah, do you think that COVID has accelerated this digital transformation now? And
Absolutely.
I mean, you talked about you have companies that have desktops still, and they've moved on.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so let me talk about that for a second, because I think that's what's interesting, right? So the bucket of clients, and I always tease clients that have been in business for a long time, because the reward for being in business is that you've got to shell out some cash for this digital transformation, right? And so I think what's really interesting is that when they hired us for our IT strategy that typically includes this modernization practice, this digital transformation. And so they were already gearing up to do these projects. And so it was almost like the fast forward button was hit. And it was like, okay, buy equipment, figure out how to make people remote right now. And so that's what we had to do. Thankfully, right, like I said before, these clients were already bought into the strategy we laid out for them. And I think it's really important to highlight that if you don't have an IT strategy, you just don't know what to expect. You don't spend any money. And I think that's another really interesting thing to talk about too, is how MSPs communicate strategy to clients.
That makes a lot of sense, and I like the philosophy of when they're coming on with Tenisi, we're not just maintaining, but we're going to help drive you forward to the future.
100%. I mean, a new client that's onboarding with us said, "Hey, we really love your CIO plus IT in a box model." And I was like, "Thank you for that. I'll use that as part of our next marketing campaign." So you don't work with us unless we have an IT strategy and a roadmap. And, if you guys talk to MSPs a lot, you'll know that that's not something that they're super familiar with, but that also ties into growing up in an enterprise and understanding that you can't get somebody to spend money unless you have a plan for it.
Well, I know I have an enterprise background, and they generally expect 110%.
Yes.
So, I guess 100% I'll have to do.
To clarify, Don worked at Enterprise Rental Car.
Yeah, perfect.
That's where he was stealing them cars.
Nice work, Don. So I understand you're a busy woman as well. You have your own podcast as well. Can you tell us about that?
I do, yes. I just started one called Tech Me Seriously. And I am focused on speaking with leaders in business and in technology, primarily women, but there's a few good men out there that we want to absolutely have on. But I've had some amazing women on the podcast so far, and I just love having conversations with them. They're pretty informal conversations about what they're passionate about, what they're successful at, and how they make it all happen. And so we've had, the CEO of Panzura, Jill Stelfox, has been on, Deanna Kostaraju, who's the founder of Global Tech Women, who has built this entire global community of women. That's an awesome one. Talked to a couple of people about leadership, Christy Royce on what it means to be a great leader. Also had Mary Lou McFarlane on, who's the founder of Women in Sports Technology, Tracy Jackson on kind of managing tough conversations. So I've had some phenomenal women on, and it's such a fun project. I'm really looking forward to keeping that going.
Yeah, I'm jealous you have the pool out there in California of probably great resources that you know personally that you're able to find some good guests from.
It's pretty fun. So far, I haven't done a Find My Podcast Guest thing, which I guess they have websites that you can go to. Isn't that where you guys found me? No, I'm kidding.
I have no idea.
But
It was a Craigslist
it's fun.
ad.
It's a super fun project.
Yeah, and there's Facebook Marketplace we found. Found you, but thank you.
Looking for some models.
Yeah. Well, so definitely check that out. Tech Me Seriously, so that you're on all the big platforms, Apple and all that good stuff. Google.
Apple, Spotify.
Awesome.
You can go to techmeseriously.com to see the full episode list. I
Perfect.
think we're about 8 in.
Nice. And if people want to find out more about Tenisi Tech, where do they go for that?
TenisiTech.com.
God, that's so easy.
For sure.
And I'll
so
spell
easy.
that to make sure people know. TENISI, one S, 2 I's, 1 N.
Oh
It's
man.
an E.
that really cleared it up. Nice work.
Well, there's
Spelling
two
it backwards.
T's if you're counting the T from tech.
There's a
as
silent
well.
K.
Oh
in
my
there
gosh.
somewhere, right?
Yeah, so you'll find just Google something like that and you'll find it. Tenisi Tech.
Great.
Nailed it. See, that's the great plug there. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know, like I said, you're a busy person, so thank you for taking out the time to talk with us today.
You got it. It was fun. Thanks so much, you guys.
And I think Don's one of the few good men that could be on your podcast. You want him on your podcast. You
I
need
do.
him on
No,
your podcast.
I definitely do. I definitely do. I'm pretty
Did you get my
excited.
reference there? That was
Yes,
from a
you
few
can't
good men.
handle the truth,
Okay,
Peter.
good. All right, got it. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
All right, thank you, Sarah, so much for joining us, and thank you, everybody, for watching. But stay tuned. We've got a lot more Technado coming up right after this quick break.
This is Kevin. He's studying online for a Microsoft certification using another online IT training service. He's also on his second pot of coffee today to stay awake. And this is Kyle. He's also studying Microsoft but using IT Pro TV. Rather than watching a boring voiceover PowerPoint, he's actually enjoying the training with 2 hosts in an interactive format. Both Kevin and Kyle have access to virtual labs and practice tests, but Kyle can also get help through a live chat with other IT Pro TV members and his instructors, as well as post to a Q&A forum. He can even search for exactly what he's looking for in the interactive video transcripts, all while paying less than Kevin. Oh, and Kyle can also watch in comfort via Roku app. Kevin and Kyle are both learning IT, but Kyle is enjoying the journey. Want to be more like Kyle? Here are the plans to start your IT Pro TV membership today.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette, and thank you so much to Sarah Tenisi from Tenisi Tech for joining us and having some fun.
Good guest.
Yeah, it's always good to talk to the MSPs, the people on the front lines in the field, saving lives.
Even though she says she doesn't do that anymore, she's like,
Well, she knows those people.
Yes. She does.
Hey,
She employs those
being a
people.
sysadmin or being an MSP, that's tough work.
that is no doubt
Yeah.
work.
All right, but we have a lot of great articles to get to, as Don mentioned, and our first one is from tomshardware.com. Seagate says 100 terabyte hard drives due in 2030. Multi-actuator drives to become common. What is a multi-actuator drive, Don?
So have you ever cracked open a spinning hard drive?
Heck yeah.
I've seen the inside. Yeah, I haven't done it
so
personally.
you've got a couple of platters, right? The discs, there's usually 3 or 4 of them, and then there's a mechanical arm in there that moves the magnetic heads.
Looks like a
across it.
record player, kind
Yes.
of like an old
Yeah.
school. Yeah.
So except it's got like 4 pins on it instead of 1, and what moves it back and forth is called an actuator, right? So normally when you crack open a disk, it's only got 1 of those. But if they want to get higher density, they've either got to find a way to make data stored in a smaller fashion on the platter, or find a way to introduce more platters. And that's what Seagate is doing, is they're doubling the amount of platters and putting in a second actuator. So they have 4 arms that are basically reading off of the top disks and 4 arms that are reading off of the bottom disks, so they can double the size. Now, what we don't know, and the reason they're saying this technology is way out in 2030, is anybody could double the size of a disk right now. It would just be twice as tall.
Right. It would be a
right?
bigger drive, right?
But supposedly they can do this in the standard drive form factor, which means there's some micronization happening. The platters have to be thinner, which makes them a lot more sensitive to vibration. And
Seagate, you got to underpromise and overdeliver here.
Well, so here's my question. And maybe I'm just caught up in the marketing, but from what I've been hearing for the last few years is no solid state. Oh, it's so much better. It's
But there's still a good market for like physical disks, though, right?
well, it comes down to price per gigabyte,
Right.
Right. So the price per gigabyte of a SSD is like 4 times higher than a spinning disk. So if you want huge amounts of storage, right? If I want a 1 terabyte SSD, well, I can go and buy one. It's going to cost about $100, right? Maybe $120 if I try and go Samsung. Maybe $150 if I try and get the best, right? But if I want to get a terabyte spinning disk, it's like $40, right? It's dirt cheap. And if I want to get a 14 terabyte spinning disk, I can do that right now for about $200. But if I want a 14 terabyte SSD, can't find them. Right? I think they're kind of capping out around 5 terabytes right now for what's commercially available. So if you really want huge amounts of storage that's relatively fast, well, spinning disks are still a thing. And if you want even more storage really, really cheap, well, you can get 50 terabyte LTO tapes for $50, right? So the old LTO, the magnetic tapes, those are still a thing. They're used in data centers. People do their backups because you can get huge amounts of storage for a really low price.
It was like the reel-to-reel kind of
No,
tapes, did you see?
they look like cartridges that go into like a jukebox device.
People
Like an
used to do
8-track?
backups on
Yeah,
those.
yeah, there you go.
Will our viewers know what an 8-track
Yeah.
is?
Think of the 70s, and you're in an Oldsmobile, right?
Watch a Quentin Tarantino film.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah, it's what's on the radio there.
Yeah.
So there's actually a really cool GIF on this Tom's Hardware,
Tom's Hardware page.
Site. So those are the 2 actuators that you were talking about,
Yeah.
moving back
Yeah.
and forth. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
like
check
the
it out.
idea of the bits. Now, is this going to help? From what I understand, there's going to be a bit of a problem because we're storing so many things now. We're like, we need storage, we need tons of storage, and we're kind of working our way toward a crisis of raw material to actually build the storage. Is this going to help like reduce that?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because we find newer, bigger data to store, right? So instead of storing video in 1080p
Right.
now,
We just fill it up anyway.
by the time we're in 2030, we'll be recording at 8K or 16K,
right.
and so we'll fill it up.
We need isolinear chips, Don.
I remember, and here I'll date myself, when I upgraded from a 10 megabyte hard drive to like a 250 megabyte hard drive. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, how will I ever fill this space? And now I've got a terabyte hard drive, and I'm at like 80% capacity, and so you just kind of adjust to it. It's like your income, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
expand your basic means of living or whatever. I don't know the right term.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Like it's the
If you have more, you'll spend more.
basically your standard of living goes up.
Yeah.
Because you have more money to raise your standard of living, and most people want to do that.
And so that's how storage is. But the interesting part is some things tend to double over time, but hard drive storage hasn't. It increases by 2 terabytes here or 4 terabytes there, but this is a pretty big jump, and it's laid out all the way to 2030. So it's going to take a while to get us to 100 terabytes, but it's coming.
Cool
Down
stuff,
the-
though.
Yep.
Is it petabyte 1,000 terabytes?
It would be yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good times.
I like it.
And then
Looking
after that, you
forward
get exabytes. All right, and those will
That
be.
sounds like a skin disease.
And one day I'll be like, man, that laptop only has 1 exabyte of storage. What a piece of
Wow,
crap.
man, how do you
Get it.
even run Windows on that?
Yeah.
You think that'll be 2030?
No,
Okay.
Windows 9000. Or
Windows
whatever.
9000.
that one will be far off.
All right. Our next article, speaking of Windows, comes to us from WindowsCentral.com. Vertical tabs, startup boost, and more. Here's what's new in Microsoft Edge this month. Vertical tabs.
Vertical tabs. That's right. So tabbed web browsing. If you remember the olden days,
You're just
right?
aging yourself like crazy today.
Internet Explorer, Netscape Navigator, if you wanted more than one web page open, you needed more than one window. And then somebody had the brilliant idea to introduce tabs. Yeah, all the times.
Okay.
So then you have tab browsing, which is now just a standard feature of every web browser that there is. We're all used to it, and we have tabs. Some people are really, really good about only having 2 or 3 tabs open, and that's it. And then there's me, where I will typically have about 20 tabs open. And then if you walk over to like our developers and stuff, those guys
crazy,
are ridiculous.
Right? All the tabs.
Well, the problem is when the tabs are arranged horizontally, right? The more tabs you have open, the smaller they get until all you can really see is the favorite icon. You can't really read anything. And so what Microsoft is rolling out is vertical tabs, which is actually a navigation pane on the left side of your screen that lists your tabs in a vertical format. So no matter how many tabs you have open, you can still read at least the first 5 words of the description of the tab. So that's a lot more useful, and you can scroll up and down to see the tabs. And they're rolling it out right now. It's actually active on my computer at home. It's not active here on my computer at the office. It's cool, right? I totally recognize how it's much more useful in that format. But man, am I having a hard time adjusting to it, because for the last 10 years, I've had tabs at the top of my screen. Having the tabs on the left side is weird.
Well, I'm thinking of the fact too that you're losing that screen space on a, on an iPad or laptop. That's a big deal. But on a lot of the monitors people have these days, those wide monitors, that's the empty space on a web page, is the left and the right sides.
Good.
Yeah, I was going to say now, I'm with you guys. Like the tabs on the left side would be completely just foreign to me and start making it difficult for me to, in my workflow and things when I'm working. I'm thinking, what if we did almost like multiple desktops, but multiple browser tops where you kind of page through and you can have tabs at the top, still go with that idea, but you just kind of page around. That would be my solution to that.
I mean, there's a few different options that are out here. Now, when I heard about this first, I thought, I'm going to get a little more vertical space, right? If we move the tabs off to the left side, my web page can be a little taller, which on modern monitors with like a 16:9 resolution, that's a pretty useful thing. So when I turned the feature on, I was pretty surprised to see the tabs move to the left, and then you just get the application title bar at the top. You don't regain any space.
Really?
So vertical tabs does not gain you any space whatsoever.
It adds a Yahoo toolbar.
Well, I mean, what if you did that instead of like making the tabs come in and be all small across the top? What if they drop down and give you another line?
Yeah. Well, they rolled out last year tab grouping. Where you could group them together and kind of have that. So they're trying different things.
They're trying different things. Yeah.
And it's Microsoft doing it, which is interesting. Like Google's not doing any of this.
They're like, shut up and do what we say.
And so it's Microsoft Edge where we're seeing a lot of these features. I did notice when I had it turned on my computer at home, I have my taskbar on the left side of my screen because I got used to that with Linux. GNOME keeps it on the left.
Yeah.
And then when I turned on vertical tabs, that was on the left, and I did kind of feel like I had a Yahoo toolbar installed.
Like this little window of the actual
Yeah.
website. So the other half of this was the startup boost. What's that about?
Startup Boost is BS. So I didn't really care about that part. So basically,
we keep it running in the background so that when you need it, it comes up.
You know how web browsers take a ton of memory?
Yeah.
So what they did is they make it where when you have the browser closed, it still takes a ton of memory, so that when you launch it again, it doesn't have to recopy from the hard drive into RAM.
The oldest tricks are the best tricks.
Yeah, it's total BS. Smoke and mirrors on that one. Yeah.
Now, what's your take on this like preview idea here for when you're doing like search optimization type of idea, where if you search a recipe, you can see all the cool recipes. Oh, I like that. And instead of having to go to that page, they kind of preview it for you with all the relevant information.
So from a user standpoint, like from us, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? But it is a legal nightmare that Microsoft is going to get themselves into because you're not seeing the ads for that site, so you're demonetizing that other site. You're technically stealing their content. And this is the whole premise behind the big Australia Facebook battle from last week.
Man, they are into it, aren't they?
They certainly are. And then,
buddy.
People like Peter over there who work in marketing, where
the devil.
That doesn't even count as an impression on the site. That the preview is being generated by the search engine.
Nice.
Yeah. So problems.
Weren't there some lawsuits related to like Google image search for the same thing as well?
Yeah.
Basically, you could, I can see this image without having to go to the site. So yeah.
Yep.
Get out your pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, get mad, people. All right, well, change is coming, and I know a lot of people will just look for ways to get that off their
Cue
computer.
the candle box.
Yeah.
Exactly, and if it's good, maybe it'll come to real browsers after that. So keep an eye out for that. Daniel, you could make your own. You could, make a Chromium-based browser.
That's true.
So I've been using Chrome for years, But last month I decided to go ahead and give Edge a shot, and I've actually been enjoying
You like it?
Edge. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't tried it on Linux yet, but on like Mac and Windows, it works really well.
I'm just about full into Brave at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Edge is the Zune of browsers where, hey, might be better.
The Zune of
I don't know.
browsers.
It's
Might
too
be
late.
gone
I'm not
one
going to
day.
try it
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
But all right. Let's move on to our next article, which is over at bleepingcomputer.com. Hijacking traffic to Microsoft's Windows.com with bit flipping. All right, I've not heard that term before. Can you guys tell me what bit flipping is?
All right. Before I dive too far into this one, I want to get Daniel's opinion because this is something that I've been aware of for years and years, and I have an opinion on it. Daniel, what did you think about this?
What I'll say, it was very interesting, right? The idea that this happens, and then when they explained the frequency in which they were seeing this, I was like, "Holy crap, Oli! That's more than I expected, right? That's a whole lot more than I expected this to occur. So it has some credibility as far as an attack vector.
All right, so let's back up to what this is because Daniel says there's credibility.
It seems like it anyway. This is the first time I've seen this type of attack. So
oh, it is. Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
I was totally noob to this.
All right, so let's back up. I'm kind of out of order here because I'm a bit of a skeptic on this one.
Yeah.
So let me lay this out here. You guys are familiar with domain names, right? We type in a domain name and we go there, and there's domain name squatting or typo squatting,
Which I am familiar with.
where people try and buy a domain name that's close, like a mistake somebody would make. Maybe I type Google and I just do 1 O instead of 2. Well, somebody buys that and puts malware on it, right? That would be bad.
Yeah.
So most of the big companies are out there, they buy the various typo squatting domains, so they kind of have that. Well, that's something that humans are involved in. How often do you misspell a domain name?
Every day.
Yeah, pretty frequent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe that means I'm a terrible typer, but either way.
That's exactly what it means.
Well, there is another scenario where you could potentially provide the wrong URL, and that's when bit flipping occurs. Now, if you haven't heard of bit flipping, your computer stores everything in RAM. And in RAM, everything is stored as a 0 or a 1, a bit, right? It's a bunch of bits that are stored in RAM, and in theory, there's an electrical charge running through the RAM that keeps it a 0 if it's supposed to be 0, and keeps it a 1 if it's supposed to be 1. And if you power off your computer, it all gets wiped out, and then you start up again, and your RAM continues on, 0s and 1s. Well, if there's a solar flare and some cosmic radiation spills forth from the sun and penetrates through the Earth's atmosphere and targets down on your town, into your house, into your computer, into your RAM, into where a very specific bit happens to be stored, it could potentially flip from a 0 to a 1 or a 1 to a 0. That's called bit flipping, right? And I threw a lot of potentials in there because, this is not a common thing. This is not something that's going to happen to most of us on a regular basis. As an individual, the odds of me having a bit flip in a given day are incredibly low. Now, on a large enough scale, though, if you take the planet as an example, somebody is getting bit flipped right now, okay? Probably not one of our 10 Technado listeners, right? But maybe
Yes,
somebody,
Mom?
maybe somebody in the United States, maybe
They all have
somebody in Europe.
ECC.
Well, ECC would protect from this, right? So if you have the
Isn't that what Linus Torvalds was bitching about the other
He
day?
goes on
right?
and on about it, but it's error correcting.
Yeah, that's what's good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the article. I was
Something
trying to
like
think
that,
about
yeah.
that one. I was like,
Yeah.
I know we talked about this
Yeah, we
recently.
did. Yeah.
And he was going on about how important it is. But again, for me, bit flipping is so unlikely to happen. Why would I pay extra for memory? And what Linus was really saying was just memory vendors should do this and not charge us extra.
Why not do it? Yeah.
Right. So what a security researcher was trying to figure out was, what if he didn't typo squat Windows.com? What if he bit flip squat Windows.com? So these are typos you wouldn't make by hand. They're typos that would happen if the Silver Surfer hit you with his what was it? The Power
That's right.
Cosmic.
No, that was the Fantastic Four that got hit by solar radiation.
They did. Yep.
Yeah.
So if you get hit by that, right, and you don't turn into the thing, and instead when you type Windows.com,
Ben Grimm is bit flip
the bit flip happens, and the I in Windows becomes an H, and so now it's Windows spelled wrong, right? And so this guy went and found that there were 14 different iterations of bit flipped Windows.com that he was able to buy. Spent about $120 on it, and once he had those, some traffic was actually hitting it. Now, I feel like there wasn't some rigorous science behind this.
Well, he did say that it was almost impossible really to figure out whether or not you just accidentally typed that.
Somebody could have accidentally typed it. A program could have it in error. There were a number of different things that could have led to it. So there wasn't like direct evidence that these were all people who had been bit flipped, but he showed that it was possible.
Right.
So this is an attack that's possible. It's just so unlikely.
I'm just wondering, like, the less devices that are enabling things like ECC and doing that as a protection against something like that, and the more devices that we put out into the world, like the more this becomes a possibility, right? We're increasing the attack surface constantly. So right now we're seeing, what was it, 3,400 some odd or requests a day. Let's say give or take plus or minus 10% of that, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to just increase the more we don't protect against it, I would assume.
Well, the likeliness of this is just so hard, and even the timing of it, because it has to happen when your browser is doing the first lookup for that domain, and it has to happen before it leaves your computer, because once it's on the network, it's fine. So it's just such an unlikely thing. Now, Daniel, you are a security professional. I need some advice here. I want to protect Technado.com. Do I need to buy the bit flipped?
Technado.
Yeah. Do you need to buy those? I mean, depends. Like, if it costs you $126, hell yeah, why not? Right? It wasn't. That's a small price to pay, even for a small payout. Right? It's just it's all about layered defense, right?
Sure.
Do all the things you can do to try to protect your system. Why take a chance if it costs you $126?
All right, hang on. $126. Now, let's say I put the choice here.
Okay.
A, I go and buy all the bit flip domains for Technado.com, or B, the three of us go get beer and steaks down at the post-pandemic
I'll
at the
tell you
steakhouse.
what, I'll buy the domain. Like if your pennies are that pinched, well, I'll hook you up, right?
How many people do we think are coming to Technado.com?
I know.
Yeah. We're probably an unlikely target. I mean, it's going to be a return on investment kind of risk assessment stuff at that point.
So,
go ahead.
Daniel says buy the domains. I say enjoy your steak.
Yeah.
I'm with the steak one because the other one didn't sound like it had food.
Technically, I said do both.
But you've only got so much budget.
Well, dang, man.
Now you're talking about McDonald's.
He's coming out of his pocket for us. So let's do it. So here's my question, though. So you've talked about, solar flares and all this stuff has to happen for
Power
this to
cosmic.
happen.
The power cosmic.
Is there no way that someone could create a device or something that causes a bit flip?
I mean, I guess in theory.
So you would have to target.
That would be a hell of a targeted campaign.
This has to be really a random thing.
Yeah.
Yes, you can generate the interference that would cause bit flips, but to target a particular bit would be really hard.
Now,
At a
imagine
particular
if
time,
you were
yeah.
able to do that, though. Maybe there's some security. I've seen some crazy crap out there now. I've seen, like, attacks that defeat Faraday cages and things of that nature. Like, some people get smart, and they're like, all right, now this is happening.
Well, I tell you what I would do there, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I had that in my capability.
Yeah.
Peter's over there going to some secure website, right? So
Yeah.
I would hit it when it's doing the public key, private key handshake.
Oh, yeah.
And just snag the key or put my own key in there. He thinks he came up with
and
it.
you're doing a man in the middle.
And now you can read all the traffic beyond that. So that one little push, like that's a more useful thing.
Credential harvesting.
But to do that, you'd already have to have access to my machine.
No.
To know, well, you got to know when that thing's happening.
Well, yeah, we would have to be like targeting you through like your day. So I'd have to get here at like, what time do you get here? Like 9 o'clock?
11.
Yeah.
11:30.
Super late.
So I think on a likeliness scale, though, I'm just as likely to invent a death ray.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
I
then
mean,
I would just use that.
Would it fall into the category of like Tempest attacks and things of that nature?
Yeah.
Well, let's take-
They still do it.
Let's take the money we'd put into a death ray and then just go get steaks and beers.
What if we used a death ray to kill the cow to make the steaks?
That makes sense. I like that better. All right, we got to move on from this one. But
Just because it's a death ray doesn't mean it can't be a humane death
this is
ray.
Daniel's homework for the week to
Figure
come up with this machine
death ray.
so we can do this.
In the meantime, wrap your computer in tinfoil.
Yeah, it works great.
fact.
Anyway.
Always put it in the fridge
That's
like
right.
every night.
Listen,
Yeah.
I can defeat Faraday cages.
All right, our next article is from KrebsOnSecurity.com. At least 30,000 U.S. organizations newly hacked via holes in Microsoft's email software. There's holes in the software?
Dun, dun, dun. So if you run on-premises Microsoft Exchange right now, you need to assume that your system has been compromised. So there is a zero-day exploit that is being actively taken advantage of by a cyber espionage group with ties to China. And it is bad, right? So Microsoft has had a little bit of heads up on this. When I say a little bit, about 2 months ago, they started getting first reports. But only recently has it really hit the wild. And basically what people are finding is that the infection rate on this thing is insane. I've actually heard from a few organizations here in the local area where basically everyone who's checked has found evidence they had already been compromised. So it's bad.
Yeah.
If you're on-prem. Now, if you're in the cloud, Microsoft did kind of already take care of this for Office 365, which is kind of the product they want you to use. So this is a further nail in the coffin for people maintaining on-prem infrastructure, but it is really bad. Microsoft has released tools that you can use to check and see if your system has already been compromised, and there are some steps you can use to prevent being compromised in the future. A patch is already out, so if you haven't updated, now is the time to do it.
Well, this goes back to our interview with Sarah. I mean, why are you on-prem?
Is it cheaper to be in the cloud than run an on-prem solution?
It depends on how you measure cheap, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, if I want to buy a Windows Server license and an Exchange license and a server, like before you know it, you spent $20,000, right?
Okay, yeah.
But then there's your cost, and so now you throw your mailboxes on it and you run. Right. With Office 365, you're paying between $6 and $22 a month per user, and you're paying every month forever.
So depending on how big your organization is,
when you start factoring things in like tech support, maintaining the hardware, doing backups,
storage,
right?
I mean,
getting hacked by the Chinese,
all of a sudden the cloud service looks a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
Now, there are companies, and probably some of the listeners out there in Technado land, where the cloud isn't a choice. Right.
It's like a regulatory thing, right?
Yeah. You got some super secret sensitive information, or maybe you're not in the U.S., and so why would you want to use Microsoft's cloud service or a U.S. company? They're going to spy on your stuff, like the Chinese are doing right now. So it doesn't really matter, but to some people it's very important.
Not just the Chinese, by the way. We should point out there's many other countries
all
looking
sorts
at your
of
data.
people love that data.
Yeah, lately they're kind of our boogeyman, right? That we blame everything on, and
the Russians,
Chinese.
I thought it was the Russians.
Russians. That was last year.
Same people.
Depends. Depends on what's going on.
It's Russians during an election year, and then it's Chinese.
Then Chinese
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing the long game. This article made me think right off the bat when I read the headline, like holes in Microsoft's security, of that issue that was happening with when the iPhones came out that had the different cameras on the back. I had to look it up. Trypophobia, the fear of holes.
The fear of holes.
I mean, those people were right all along.
All along. Yep. So if you want to learn more about this, the exploit is called Hafnium. Hafnium. Again,
it's not a new cryptocurrency?
No,
that's what it sounds like.
I am typically skeptical of these things, but this one's real. I have talked to real people in the field that are dealing with this right now while we're filming this podcast. So it's bad. And if you have an on-premises Exchange server, you need to pause the podcast and go check it out because you likely have.
Yeah, there was a GitHub repository in the article that can do a scan to check and see if you got this problem.
Absolutely check it.
Plug those holes. All right. Our next article is over at PCMag.com. Oh.
You skipped an article.
You did.
What did I skip?
You skipped
rookie mistake.
Rookie thing.
Yeah.
I did a rookie mistake.
Yeah.
God, this is the second week in a row I've done
I know.
that.
You did.
It's
I was going to say something, but I thought, they'll fix it in post.
You know why?
Something.
You know why? Because my tabs are across the top.
If you had vertical tabs.
If I had vertical tabs, there's no way that this would happen.
Oh, well.
God dang it.
That's you, Peter.
Oh, let me. This is the time when I have the.
Remember, Daniel, back when we had professionals on the podcast?
I know. It was fun.
Yeah. Hold on. When was that?
I know. Never.
What are you talking about, Wes?
That was that.
Justin?
Did Ronnie show up?
No. This
definitely wasn't Justin.
Our next article is. We'll just edit that part back to the other one. Our next article is from arstechnica.com. Rookie coding mistake prior to Gab hack came from site's CTO. The site executive introduces, then removes insecure code, and my favorite part, then hides the evidence.
Oh my goodness, this is just
fantastic.
embarrassing. If you're not familiar with Gab, it is designed to be a private free speech zone for people to communicate. So it's been adopted by a lot of members of the right-wing political groups that are out there that have been kind of pushed away from other platforms. I'm trying to tiptoe around this.
You're like, if you thought Parler was too left-wing, Gab is the platform for you.
I think it wasn't so much Parler being left-wing as Parler being
online.
shut down.
Yeah.
And so
you thought your Parler was online.
many people jumped over to Gab, including President Trump. So so a lot of people on there, and they have suffered a breach. They've actually suffered 2 breaches now, but we'll just deal with one. But this particular breach is embarrassing because they do publish their code to GitHub, and it's a repository that you can go and look at. And in this case, it was a SQL injection attack. And as Daniel always tells us, if you find a field on a website that takes input and the input is not being sanitized, that you can throw all sorts of crazy things in there and attack the database. It's what he loves. And in this case, they found where some of those protections, the input sanitization, had been removed by the actual CTO and then put back in after the compromise. So the CTO actually caused it. And the chief technology officer, you would think would be on top of something like that. In this case, poor security practices. So Daniel, what you always talk about rings true one more time.
There it goes, right there. You got to be sanitizing them inputs. Trust nothing, right? Never trust. It's that idea of a zero trust environment, right? Never trust, always verify. You want to be filtering with things like this. You want to do parameterized queries. You want to make sure that nothing gets past the gates without your say-so, and that without being checked as well. Even if you think, yeah, this should be good because, Billy, he's a good member. He would never do. What are you doing, Billy? What is that? Oh, hell no.
So here's my question, Daniel. So, I'm trying to think of an analogy. So let's say I have the TV plugged into a surge protector, and I'm like, I want to switch to a different port. So I unplug it from the surge protector and plug it in somewhere else, and that's the moment I get the surge. So the person here had these closed off, and then all of a sudden they accidentally opened it up for a little bit before he said, oops, I made a mistake, and went and turned it back on. Are people just constantly being attacked?
Yes.
And so that's how,
so
it's an automated thing where we're
legit,
just trying.
It is a non-stop war out there for information, access. It never ends. If you are on the internet, I don't care if you're just a single individual living out in the world doing your thing. Someone is attacking your stuff if you have an internet presence.
But a site like this, is it manual, or is there someone who said, hey, I'm going to write a script that just is always trying, and so if it ever turns off, I can get in there?
I mean, ultimately, this stuff is coded by a coder. Like somebody added code into this, and you got in a rush or whatever, pressures, or just forgot. I mean, we're humans; we make mistakes.
He was probably troubleshooting some problem,
right? Made it work, and was like, "Oh, thank God, it's working." And then was like, "Oh crap!"
Now, a lot of this is automated scans. There's tons of people who are just
scanning is definitely.
But in this case, Gab is a little high profile because Parler just got shut down.
Right.
A lot of these, people have moved over. It's a huge media buzzword item, so they're probably under a little more scrutiny than most other sites. The Clubhouse chat app that's blowing up right now, they're under a little more scrutiny. Attackers target what's popular, and so with a surge in popularity, usually comes along.
They basically become like security watering holes where people that's what the lions know you're there getting a drink. So they're gonna come in there and stalk their prey down.
Yeah, it's not fair game, but it's almost seen that like, hey, that's where we go and try out our stuff.
Oh yeah.
And that's why at Technado we endorse the mass killing of lions. That's the solution.
Just the extinction of the lion species.
All right, that might not be the way to fix this one.
Okay.
But
so maybe you've overstepped.
Yeah. Although I think this highlights, some people do CI/CD, right? Continuous integration, or no?
Continuous development.
Continuous development. CI is
continuous integration.
Oh, I had it right. Oh, look at that. I'm right sometimes.
I'm pretty sure.
Where you have more than one person reviewing code before it rolls out. Right, and you're continually pushing changes. So this CTO had the ability to go in and make this modification without anybody reviewing it.
Right.
And they're the CTO, I guess, right? But as the CTO, you yourself should be responsible and say, I need to get a second set of eyes on this before I push it to the site.
People, they do something wrong, and they like, oh no, and that fear can overcome you and make you do something you shouldn't do. Was it Uber? Didn't Uber kind of have the same kind of problem?
They bribed an attacker to hide the fact that they were hacked.
Right.
Yep.
This kind of stuff happens, man. People, I mean, don't get me wrong. You do something criminally negligent, you should pay the penalty for it. But, or if it's just stupid, you're probably going to pay the price socially. Yeah. But
in terms of what the hack was here, was it kind of just like the Parler thing where they were archiving, like grabbing all the data so they'd have it?
Yeah, once they were in, they had access to the database, and so they were able to pull whatever they wanted out of there.
I mean, they didn't take the site down. They didn't do anything like that. They just wanted to.
Yeah,
because it mentions here that like Trump's name or Trump's account is one of the 15,000 accounts that was hacked as part of this as well. So
change your passwords.
Yeah, exactly.
Enable two-factor.
Well, I think there's an extra message here though, which is right now there's a whole a virtual cornucopia of messaging apps that are exploding and social media sites. So, Gab and Parler are two big examples, but we've got Clubhouse and WhatsApp and all these ones that are, some of them tell you they have end-to-end encryption, but they don't. Some of them are, you don't know. How many employees does Gab have? They might have 5.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Right? We have no idea. So be really hesitant to trust any new social media platforms.
Well, they're open source, so that's a big help, though, right?
Yeah,
to say,
but
I can kind of look into what you're doing because you're using open source. That's the law. I can see that.
But I'd say the bad guys are reviewing the code.
I would totally
I don't
agree.
think the good guys are.
Well, then that's just crazy.
I should point out they only have 4 employees
Well, I
now.
mean, hopefully they've got like a bug bounty program, responsible disclosure, and this is going to help, maintain that and keep that from happening again.
Maybe I'm being cynical again, as I have been this whole podcast, but I feel like they probably threw this product together to try and capitalize on Parler going
I
out.
thought Gab's been around a while.
Have they?
Oh yeah, many years.
All right.
Yeah.
They just kind of moved into this space, or kind of became popular with.
I
with this
want to
crowd
say the
when
CTO is relatively new. If I'm thinking correctly,
Yeah.
I might be wrong on that, but I had the impression that the CTO was new. He had made some. He was an ex-Facebook employee.
Oh, you'd think you'd know better.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Maybe that's why he's
Facebook. Yeah.
don't know that's why he's not there anymore. But
All right. Well, so
you used to
SQL
work at
injection,
Equifax.
he worked at Equifax.
This is a OWASP top 10 attack.
It is.
If you want to learn more about that, check out just about any of Daniel's training. Oh, it is number 1,
It's
isn't it?
A1, baby.
This guy just did his internship at SolarWinds.
Yeah, we actually have an
this.
OWASP top 10 series.
Yeah.
So
You should check that out.
Yeah.
We should
All
send
right,
him a
this-
note. Free membership.
Here's some. Yeah, here you go, bro.
Yeah, free account.
Yeah.
That's a marketing thing. We'll just send free accounts to people.
Everybody that gets breached.
All right, so before I move on to the WTF segment, is that all the articles?
Have we missed any other articles?
Did I get anything? Got it?
No,
No,
I think
Check
that's
that out.
it.
All right, well, this next one is WTF.
Plug your ears.
So it's not loud to me.
It's loud to them.
Yeah.
It's loud to the people at home.
We might want to rework that intro.
And so- it's not that bad. All right, this article is from PCMag.com. Are you brave enough to get a tattoo from a robot? And I'll just answer first, and I know, Don, you have some things to say about this, but I watched a separate video on another article about this, and I saw them testing on a tomato, and I saw that tattoo gun go about 2 inches into the tomato. So I'm going to say no, not brave enough. Not to be first, at least.
All right. Well, the article is about a tattoo-giving robot, which I do want to point out that there is a picture in the article, and Daniel and I
We
both
thought the same thing.
the woman getting a tattoo was a mannequin and or a robot herself.
Yeah.
Turns out actual human being. There's video footage. But it's not so much the robot that's giving the tattoo. So a little bit of clarification here. So they've got a woman in one location and a tattoo artist in a completely different location. And he is tattooing on a rubber arm or whatever. Right. And the robot in the location with the woman is basically recreating his movements. And he's able to watch on a screen and give a socially distanced tattoo. That technology is pretty neat when you think about it, right? It's doing all the movement tracking and allowing him to do that. Surgeons have had similar technologies where they're able to do some of this stuff.
They were like, we've been doing this for years. This
yeah.
guy's lame.
So that's kind of neat. The tattoo is super lame. It's like 5 lines or something. But what I thought was really interesting about the whole article was it's doing all this cool stuff, right? Motion tracking, robotic arms. You've got the remote displays, real-time communication, a lot of technology involved. But the thing that they keep talking about is how it used 5G networks to communicate. And the lady even
Sponsored
says when she's
by
done,
Verizon.
I just got the first 5G tattoo. Like, what does 5G have to do with
So
it?
the 5 lines were the 5G signal.
Is that?
I don't know.
I was
That'd be
going to say that's
disturbing.
probably what it is. Yeah.
Have you heard about the Nexium cult
Oh yes.
with the branding?
I know all about that junk.
So,
is crazy.
This tattoo she got,
It looks like
a
a Nexium.
lot like the Nexium tattoo.
it's what's her name
Isn't
from
Nexium like a
Smallville.
heartburn medication?
So it is, but that's not the same.
That's not the
obviously.
same.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look this up.
It's just a bunch of people
bad
taking
coincidence.
heartburn medication.
Yeah.
Formed a cult
Oh,
around
mighty
it.
Nexium,
we have-
make my heartburn go
We
away.
have put the medicine in the Kool-Aid.
So technology's advanced a good bit. I don't think he could have done a really good tattoo with this. I think 5 lines is really the best he could get.
Well, because they were talking in the video too about how like you stretch the skin, when you're doing tattoos and things like that that's a whole nother
right.
level.
Right, because things change, like
Yeah.
moves and stuff. By the way, there is a WTF article inside of our WTF article.
Oh, really?
What is that?
Panasonic made a companion robot that farts.
What?
Why would it need
I have
to,
no idea, but it's in my related under like
Tune
at the
in
bottom.
next week on Technado. What dumb is that
A
for?
little teaser there.
PC Mag with the hard-hitting journalism.
Yeah, can you hold that one? We'll do that one next week.
You want me
for
to
sure.
throw that one in there?
Yeah,
oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
I'll grab it.
I thought Technado was bad.
So the reason this is about 5G is because this is actually a T-Mobile Netherlands advertising campaign, basically to show off, hey, look how cool our 5G is.
All right.
And so that's why the robot has little pink accents on it as well, because this is all from T-Mobile showing what is possible with the newest 5G in the Netherlands.
I will tell you that this technology is possible over every other network type known to man. This could have worked over Token Ring, I'm pretty certain. And been just fine.
Would it work on SneakerNet? Hey, he just moved his arm a little bit to the left. A little bit to the left.
Yeah,
There
a
you
little
go.
more.
So-
You're good. You're good.
Stop.
Yeah, so the cellular network spin aside, the rest of it's pretty cool. Like, you
What
know,
was the painter that made these like ultra realistic paintings, but he used like mirrors and stuff?
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
that's kind of
because
like
the CEO of, was it Newegg or Ubiquity, one of those
was that?
companies where
There
like
was,
it
like,
was
a
his hobby to
documentary about it,
recreate
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The video right in this article. Go ahead and watch it and click right to about 1:33, and you'll see the tomato moment. I just want to get your reactions.
Now everybody can listen to us as we.
Well, this is one of those
scroll and
reaction videos.
What the heck is the video?
It's like the.
Yeah, I did
Oh, there
notice
it
that
is.
the tattoo gun was pushing on her arm quite a bit. Oh my goodness!
It's like 2 inches into the
Did
arm.
you say 1:33?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
It's not
well,
good. It's
Here we
not
go.
good.
I wonder how many people died.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's legit.
prior to this.
Well, I have a tattoo now on my bone.
Now, because it's in your forearm, would that be like committing suicide with 5G?
Oh, I think so. That's not the first of those, I'm sure.
Robot euthanization.
Yeah.
You couldn't like arrest somebody for it, right?
Yeah, the robot did it.
Like we call it the robot Kevorkian.
Oh, we need Asimov's 3 laws, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the first 5G tattoo, but I'm sure we will all get them when we are forced to.
I'm
by
holding out for
5G.
6G tattoos.
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
9G tattoos.
Okay. Well, I think we've fully covered that one. Like I said, go
we fully covered.
yeah,
that one.
go watch that video and see the fun there. But that's a good one. Want to let you know about a couple things coming up. We've got a couple of great webinars in the works. One is happening later today. That is Get Hands-On with Cisco, Gain Experience with Cisco Technologies, and that's with our own Ronnie Wong and YouTube celebrity David Bombal. And we're going to be looking at how you can basically get labs and things for Cisco equipment and all the different options that are available. So you can register for that one at itpro.tv/webinars. And we also have another one coming up, which you're doing, right, Daniel?
I'm with John Hammond.
And
Top 5 CTFs
With
for
John Hamm?
Yeah, John Hamm. There's two
John
John
Hamm.
Hamms, all right? Or no, I'm thinking John Hurd.
Well, isn't John Hammond also the name of the guy from Jurassic Park?
Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking of when you say it. But yeah, so that one is Top 5 CTFs to learn cybersecurity, gaming your way to a hacking career, and it's taking place on March 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And yeah, John's a YouTuber as well.
Oh, yeah,
so.
yeah. He's got a great channel. If you guys want to see some really cool like hacking skills, definitely watch John. He's great.
And if you're not familiar with CTFs, Capture the Flags is a
Yep.
great way to get
Oh,
some
yeah.
practical experience learning how to hack and get into a system. Really cool stuff.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. I should have done that. And we've also got another thing coming up, the Cisco Free Weekend, as we're looking at Cisco here in March on, let's see, the 20th and the 21st. That weekend we'll be opening up a lot of the Cisco courses for free. Just create a free membership and you can check them out. CCNA, CCNP, DevNet Associate, all kinds of things like that. So head over to itpro.tv and check that out. Or you can just go to go.itpro.tv/Technado, and there you can get a 30% off coupon code. And then everything's free. Well, not free. I mean, it's included in your site, and you can check out all the great courses there. And if you want to find out more about the business plans, you can request a demo from there as well, and see the Pro Portal and all the great things available to IT pros from IT Pro TV at go.itpro.tv/Technado.
There it
Unless
is.
your bits get flipped,
There we go.
and then who knows where you'll end up.
Technado.
Man,
Technado.
Technado.
Yeah, we should definitely book that one as well.
Just people running around all caffeinated.
Right, now I got to sit
Technado.net.
down with a calculator and figure out what the bit flips are for our domain.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you to Sarah for joining us, and thank you, gentlemen, and look forward to that story about farting robots.
That
Was
will
it
be
farting
fun.
robots?
Yeah, farting robot.
You've got homework.
Next week on Technado. We'll see you then.